Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to Keep the Community Fed podcast. This is episode 4. I'm one of your hosts, Carmen Smith, the ED at White Center Food Bank with...
Hey everybody, I'm Gabbi Gonzales. I'm the co-chair for the White Center Food Bank board.
And we have a very special guest who is normally behind the scenes recording, getting our video for the podcast, but our marketing and community engagement coordinator, Randy.
How's it going? Thanks for
Should we
having
give
me.
a heads up if the video's weird? This is not our fault.
It's all my fault.
And then, of course, Jefferson Rose, our development and communications director, who is producing this episode for us.
Welcome back. Episode 4. Let's go.
And I'm really sorry that I didn't introduce you two in the last episode. My bad. Apologies.
No worries at all.
It's okay. We had a very exciting guest.
Yeah.
So
We did have a very
We got
exciting
very
guest.
excited.
Great combo.
Yeah, and thinking of that last episode and kind of talking about rest, I'm just coming back from work sabbatical.
She's back.
Hey, 6-week work sabbatical. So we were thinking we could kind of talk about that process and what that was like for White Center Food Bank to go through that journey and get that approved. And Gabbi and I have been talking about it for probably at least a year or so. We've been talking about a sabbatical, and originally I had applied to the BIPOC ED Coalition's sabbatical program, which is really cool. They sponsor 3-month sabbaticals for BIPOC EDs. They support the organization with the transition and provide funding for the ED to still get full pay and the organization for any kind of transition services or leadership that they need support with while the ED is out. And then I think there's like some sort of stipend that the ED gets as well to spend on whatever they'd like. I was not accepted, but that's okay. There's a lot of need within nonprofits and especially BIPOC EDs. So I have no doubt that there was a high number of applicants and it's really hard to choose. But luckily for me and for White Center Food Bank, in partnership with the board, we were able to implement our own sabbatical policy. And our HR company, Reverb, helped us draft the sabbatical policy, and in sharing it with the board, Gabbi in particular had suggested, because originally it was for a 4-week policy, but Gabbi made the suggestion of utilizing 2 weeks of PTO to make it a 6-week sabbatical.
Yeah, I think when we talk about Gandhiing it out and being the change that we want to see in the world, we have a responsibility as an organization to implement policies that we want to see out in other organizations. And how we were talking about last month with Roxana, rest and celebration as part of resistance. I think that sabbaticals are a key part of that. And so I'm so happy we're able to do that for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's for any staff at the food bank that has dedicated 5 years to the organization. And then something else that's kind of unique is that folks are eligible every 5 years for sabbatical. It's not just like a one and done. But something exciting for me that I've noticed is with the staff is like people are excited about it. Everyone dedicate so much to our work and values our work, and it's deeply important to them, but it doesn't mean like that they don't deserve rest. And I think the sabbatical policy is just a great way to honor the time that people have dedicated to the organization. And so I highly recommend it. And And I just love hearing like the chatter that people are excited about it and it's motivating to them. And actually, I think it was one of the last days of work before my sabbatical. Of course, like I packed in way too much before I went, but I led this panel for Leadership Tomorrow, and it was very much kind of centered around like rest and self-care and health and well-being. But one of the other panelists said this quote that I'm just going to carry with me from now until forever, probably. But she said, "You can't keep others warm by lighting yourself on fire."
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So that sabbatical policy is just an important way not to light yourself on fire, to keep others warm. Like all need to be making ourselves a priority, and we all deserve rest. It doesn't necessarily have to be earned. And so I feel really grateful that I was able to take sabbatical, and I'm excited for the other staff to be able to do it too.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Well,
Randy.
it's Randy's time to shine.
It's Randy's time to shine. Randy, in some ways, it seems like you've been a part of the White Center Food Bank for forever, though there's been noticeable and intentional changes over the years you've been around. You tell the story of the food bank on the socials and in other ways, in ways that are truly compelling. You're rooted in community and impacting positive social change, and that shows in your work. I honestly feel like I have so much to learn about you, and I'm really excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like when someone asks me what I do at the food bank, I might just insert that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Perfect.
I'm stoked to have this conversation with you all. So.
Yeah, and what an honor, somebody that's always kind of behind the scenes, getting all this awesome footage, making our social media so dope, and having us do some really fun things. And now you get to share a little bit about maybe your creative process and just what it's like to be a part of the food bank team. And so you're coming up on your 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, time went by so fast.
Oh my gosh, 2 years.
Yeah.
I know.
Starting February, I think.
Right around then,
right
yeah,
before,
like the end of January, beginning of February. So, and Jefferson just celebrated his 3-year.
Yay.
3 years,
Wow.
December 20th. Yeah. It's gone by so quickly, and just 2 more left before I get to go on sabbatical.
Yeah.
Not that you're counting down, but
So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah.
Talk about your history.
Yeah, so my name is Randy Nguyen, born and raised in West Seattle. I grew up with 3 siblings and a single mom. Shout out to High Point. It's a smart neighborhood in West Seattle on 35th. First generational student to graduate in higher education in my family. And so I think throughout my whole life, I've always been involved in with my community and try to give back into what I do. And as a person, I always find ways to inspire myself and grow as a person.
I don't know if you'd feel comfortable sharing more about your college experience, but I know we've had one-on-one conversations where we've talked about that and you've shared with me. And I think it's just such an important reflection of who you are. And then I see that at play at work too, just the grit that you have and what you basically had to do to get your college education.
Yeah, I mean, just to backtrack school was never a big priority for me growing up as a teen, and I was kind of the rebel in my family, and so I didn't take school serious until I want to say my senior year in high school. College wasn't really a big picture in my life until I kind of had this conversation with my older brother. He was telling me mom never finished high school, and she only had so much high school experience throughout Seattle, and I kind of had this pressure of my older brother went to higher education and he graduated from college, and so I kind of had that pressure to like go to college as well. And yeah, I didn't care about college until my senior year. I got involved with my high school, did sports, and I received the most scholarships in my senior class. And
Wow. Get it,
And,
Randy?
yeah, I just thought about my mom. Kind of had to paint that picture for myself, and just being able to meet her expectations. And she was super proud of me of what I accomplished in I think I was like 18 during the time. And yeah, I applied to a few schools. I got to schools in California, but my main dream was like University of Washington in Seattle. And I remember I got my letter of acceptance or denial, and guess what happened?
What?
I got denied.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
What? I'm like, where's the story going?
Yeah, no. I was super shocked, but I think it was kind of gave myself like self-reflection, and I went to University of Washington Tacoma. Great school. At first, I hated it. There was this stigma in my senior class, like if it wasn't University of Washington in Seattle, it wasn't the school that And so I remember my first year, I went to UW Tacoma. All I wanted to do was like, how do I transfer? Like, how do I get on the wait list? So I was going back and forth for Seattle and Tacoma like for a while, and got waitlisted. And then I got accepted like during the spring, and I decided I wanted to stay at Tacoma. I think I found my place during my college experience. I felt the environment there was very intimate, and I got to engage with my professors. And I think for me personally, that kind of like made my experience more memorable. And class size was like 15 people. Wasn't a lot of people, but got a chance to like network and build friendships from there.
Yeah, sometimes I think we create this fantasy of what we think our life should look like as an adult, right? And just like letting that fantasy take the back seat and have our life grow into what it actually is going to be is the beautiful thing.
Right. And I mean, my first 2 years, I just did prereqs, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do during my college years, but
Who does?
exactly, no one does. And and my junior year in college, I did an internship at a social marketing firm called C+C in downtown Seattle, and I was doing that part-time and skipping some of my classes just to go to work because I needed the money. And
I know that too.
yep. And but it made the college experience very like, being up on the grind and just being self-disciplined. I lived in West Seattle during the time with my mom, so I was commuting from like West Seattle to Tacoma
On the bus.
on the bus.
On the bus.
So like, it was a cool experience. It gave me the time to like reflect on the bus and do my homework and study. But yeah, it felt like a job for me. It felt very I had to grind it out, but I really enjoyed my last 2 years in college because I got to take the classes I really enjoyed, and I majored in communications and business marketing, and I got to really grasp and learn these courses and apply those skills in my class. And yeah,
Maybe you did know what you wanted to do.
surprisingly, it took me a while, but I did finish my college experience a semester early. So I had about 6 months of figuring out what to do. And so yeah, during those 6 months of being done with school, I just worked at my internship, and then it ended my senior year. And then I got a job offer from a friend that graduated the same time as me. He was like, "Hey, we have a job for you if you're open. It's a sales job, and it's all commission based."
Ooh, that's
Right.
tough.
I was very like, I put me put me under the bus, like just why not? And so I took the position, and it's a wholesale company based in Tacoma, and I was working with a lot of businesses in downtown Seattle, fresh out of college, like never worked sales commission before. And so a shout out to that job because it made me the person I am today. So taught me about like self-discipline, time management, being a people's person, and building friendships and relationships with people. But it was like a very cutthroat position for sure, but I did make good money.
It sounds like that would be a good job, like out of college, you're just so eager to do something and make money, right? Yeah. And you're, I don't know, young and
Well, communications is no joke. I just took a communications class through UW. It was intense having to write out like marketing plans and communication plans and all the things that you need to think about. It really helped me realize what you do like behind the scenes. So good for you. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. And I will say, like, graduating early was like a blessing for me because I wanted to move out of my mom's place, like right when I was done with school, and so it kind of gave me time to like save up and gave me a game plan to find an apartment after college. So.
Did you have to have roommates after college?
Nope. My partner was she was in school still at Western, so I was like, I need a place before she graduates, so I'm gonna keep grinding out and find an apartment, hopefully. So I had about 6 months to find an apartment, and my first apartment was on Deerridge.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So when did you start working at United Way?
Yeah, so the job I took in senior year in college, or after graduation, I got laid off because of the pandemic. So I worked there for about 2 years, and the pandemic happened, and they had to close the company down for a little while. And I was laid off for a little bit and worked with my uncle on landscaping for a little while. And then I kind of had, like, someday it just happened, like this white flash happened, and kind of have a blimp, and I just wanted a career change. Like, I wanted to pivot. And I just thought about my youth in my teen years, about like being involved, like creating a pea patch in my neighborhood, going to after school programs with different youth members. And I used to volunteer a lot at a lot of places. And I just wanted to give back to my community and take that route of like, what job can I do to, fulfill that satisfaction again. And so I just did AmeriCorps, and they had a position with the food security team, and then joined.
Cool.
So I was back in like 2020, I think.
2020 through 2021, because AmeriCorps is like 10 months or a year or something?
It's almost a year. So I joined the food security team at United Way, King County. Shout out to Elsa and Hannah.
Hey!
Great team. I don't know if you remember, Carmen, but when I first joined AmeriCorps, I hopped on a food bank call with Elsa, and you were in it. And then, you were telling us like the food bank's gonna be closing down because holiday distribution, and you mentioned like we were able to secure funding for our new building, and you were in the process of trying to secure a new location. So I just thought going full circle is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. And then like a year later-ish, you applied at White Center Food Bank, right?
Yeah, so my AmeriCorps term was finishing up, and then I kind of had like a midlife crisis.
How old are you? I'm like,
as any other
25?
Yeah, mid-20s, midlife crisis. And so I joined the development team at United Way, King County as a engagement coordinator. So I did a lot of donor stewardship, fundraising, workplace giving campaigns, and that was also a contract position. So I kind of had to map out a game plan, and then there was a position open at White Center Food Bank. So I kind of took that step forward, and I was on a trip, and Jefferson gave me a call and said, hey, we have a position open. And from there, it's kind of the magic wonders.
oh, is that how you heard about the job? Has Jefferson reached out to you?
No, so I heard about the position through Heather, who is our volunteer manager. Just to backtrack a little bit, when I first joined the food security team at United Way, my first job was to volunteer at the food bank.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I volunteered at White Center Food Bank at our old location, and Heather was the main contact that I worked with. And funny story, when I was there, I was bagging home delivery bags, and I was working with Amy French, who is on our board.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of a full circle as well. And then, Heather kind of kept in touch with me, and she told me there was a position open, and she referred me to the job.
What was it about the position or the organization that made you excited to apply?
Honestly, the first thing was marketing. I really wanted to put myself in the marketing world, and 'cause I never really had like a secured like full marketing position before, and that approach of giving back to my community was something that played a big factor in my applying to the job. And then just working within the 1 week with Heather and seeing all the work that you guys were doing, it was like super eye-opening. And I also volunteered at a few food banks, and for some reason the White Center Food Bank kind of stuck out to me the most.
What was it about White Center Food Bank that stuck out to you?
I think just the fast-paced environment, and but seeing the people kind of slowing it down was what I really appreciated about it. Whether that's the kind gestures people were doing, talking to customers, seeing customers talk to intake, and I don't know, something about it made me feel like I'm at home again. Like seeing different people talking different languages, seeing Chio talk to someone in Vietnamese. I was like, I kind of understood that, and so yeah, I think that's a big factor as well to why I applied.
So how do you describe your role at White Center Food Bank when you're just out talking to people, or if someone's like, what do you do?
The first thing I tell them just to break the ice is I handle all the social media. But I think, for me, it's about creating a platform and outlet to where I can make our food bank more visible to the public. Because, accessing resources can be difficult for me personally growing up. And so I kind of just breaking that barrier of visibility, and how can I share resources of our food bank in a more creative way?
I
think of you as like the hype man.
It's a storyteller.
The food bank hype man.
Yeah, people sometimes, if they don't come from the world of using a food bank, can have a very specific idea of what happens at a food bank, how food banks happen, and you and the way that you tell the story on social media shifts that, right? Because you talk about the partners, the customers, the board, the staff, and their voices are the ones that are used. And I see that as really a shift in the way that the community gets to think about this grocery store, right, in White Center, where anybody can show up and just get food for free, and it's a family.
Yeah, I think your lived experience definitely helps with getting that message out in a way that's meaningful to the community, but also you're the one that's out in the community as well. So you're, interfacing, you're talking with people, you're the face of the organization at all these events and stuff. And so I think that helps build that perspective and how you share and communicate on behalf of the organization. And then not only are you doing that, but you're also, working intake when we need you to, or working in the grocery store helping do carry out. So you see the whole picture of the organization, both inside the physical building and then what's happening outside as well.
Right. And a lot of organizations in marketing, they just they want you to increase followers or increase engagement. But for me, at first it was like that. I was like, I need to meet these expectations, but it's I want to be able to be hyper local, and how can I impact the people in my community? It doesn't have to be worldwide, right? How can people in our local community access the resources rather than people coming from different states or different counties? But it's the people who are in our community, they're close by, who's accessing our resources, and so I want to be able to amplify that message to them.
I think the content speaks for itself. Something that I get excited about this time of year is Randy usually shares metrics about social media and like how it has grown. Not that his job is based on that like performance and growing that audience, but it is neat to see just like all the like, I don't know, just Jefferson and I were talking about this earlier, just like getting to live in our truth and just seeing how that kind of pays off in these different ways. And like the metrics on social media is like just one of those outcomes that happens because you're staying true to yourself and to the organization. And I think that matters a lot, and it matters to the community too.
Yeah, and then, just hearing compliments like on our online presence is always meaningful to me. And when you think of food bank, you don't really think about social media, right? Not as much. And for me, I wanted to create content that's intentional. You don't want to dilute the feed with just content where it's not really impactful. And so I've been really just taking a step back and really creating content to where it's educational but also fun, and making it to where people can be engaged with.
Yeah, you do a good job making it fun and hyping us all up before we have to get in front of the camera.
A lot of skits,
even if you're real corny on camera. I'm pointing to myself.
I think it's interesting, especially as the podcast has rolled out, because my role is more behind the scenes. So people don't always know that I'm connected to the food bank. And because they see like my face or whatever, then they learn.
Right.
And just the wide net of like folks that we're reaching has been really surprising to me and exciting too, when somebody randomly will be like, oh, I didn't know you were involved with the White Center Food Bank. This is so amazing. And they'll like shine on the amazing things that you do and that happens at the organization. And so that's been really cool for me.
I will say this position and the team, just having that creativity kind of brings back spark of my own passion. And so I never had a position where I have full control of creativity. And so I just want to give a big shout out to Carmen and Jefferson to give me that platform to really shine through and just creating content that I want to do, but for the org as itself.
Just get you on board with TikTok.
TikTok has been the one thing that we need to start. So maybe this year.
Get on TikTok before it goes away.
Yeah, before it goes banned.
Yeah.
Team dance party,
Right?
We got to figure out some dance routines.
We need the White Center Food Bank dance.
That's
right.
We'll be the next YMCA.
I'm trying to think what that even would look like.
Well, something else about your like the role at White Center Food Bank that you get to do is like be our community engagement person, like being out in community, but even doing little planned engagement in the food bank with customers as well. And I just want to bring up the recipe book because you took the lead on that. And so we're putting together a recipe book. We've collected recipes from staff, maybe volunteer? No, not volunteers.
Possibility, yeah.
We still could.
Yeah.
And board members if they want to participate, but mostly customers, right?
Yeah, mostly customers. And Carmen Jefferson had this idea of creating a recipe book that is a collaborative effort with our community. And we have so many customers who has reached out to us through social media about, hey, we use your produce and I've made this dish. And every time we hear that, it's just so inspiring to hear and awesome to really look back and see the work that we're doing and just seeing that people are really using our produce to make good meals. And so we want to highlight that. And so we hosted a few workshops with customers in our community, and we invited them to come to our food bank. And I created this like recipe template, and they wrote the recipe and how to make it. And so these next few months, we're going to be inviting customers back to see if they're open to being in their recipe book.
Yeah, so we want to get pictures of them with their dish. Maybe if we're lucky, we get to try the dish. We did get to try one.
Yeah, that was really good.
Oh my gosh, it was so cute because a customer, she thought she had to bring the dish in to the recipe workshop, when the recipe workshop was just for them to write down the recipe and share with each other, but she thought she had to bring it. So she's like texting Randy, I'm running late. I'll be there soon. You know, I made this food. And she came and, you know, she brought her dish and we got to try it and it was so good.
Yeah. And I'm so excited. We were able to call some customers and they're so excited to come in and share dishes with us next month.
I'm really excited. So, I don't want to take credit for this idea, but it was something inspired by this farm that I interned at in college. It is a native farm called Dream of Wild Health in Hugo, Minnesota. And they had put together a recipe book based on the produce that they were growing. And a lot of the produce that they were growing was from seeds that had been handed down from an elder before she passed away. And so there's a lot of indigenous recipes in that, and they sold it for suggested donation. And so that's where the idea got inspired from. And we agreed as a team that we would offer it for a suggested donation, but a portion of the proceeds would go back to that farm, recognizing that this idea was inspired from them.
While you guys were talking about that, I was thinking about working the produce station at distribution, and one of the things that I really enjoyed is talking to customers as they picked out their produce and like asking what were they gonna make with it, and them just sharing recipes or ideas or what they mix it, like different things with for their family. And we talk about why we have the podcast and bringing conversations that were kind of happening like on the side or in private out into the community. This recipe book is another example of that, right? The social media, the stories that you tell are another example of that, bringing things out and sharing them with more people.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, you know, we talk about this, but food is such a connection piece. For so many of us, you know, even a lot of times maybe we don't speak the same language, but we can connect through food or through a dish. Mm-hmm. And so that is also a tribute to just that connection that we're able to build with each other.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of exciting things for 2025. We've got a recipe book.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the Trusted Messenger program.
Really exciting.
Randy's going to take lead on that.
Which we talk about in a bit.
Yeah. You want to talk about it now?
Sure.
Who wants to start?
I can?
Yes. Great.
Okay, great. So you all will have an opportunity to hear more about our strategic plan as we move into 25 and record more podcasts. But was it 22? What year did we start thinking about doing our next strategic plan?
I think it was 2022.
So Carmen and I started discussing what a strategic plan for the food bank would look like in 2022. And we had some thoughts, like some general thoughts. And one of them was that we needed to start putting the decision making more intentionally into community members' hands, and acknowledging that there might not be everybody that we want at the table sitting at the table to make the decisions. And so when we started looking for our strategic plan contractor, we had written in a version of like a Trusted Messenger, community connector, connection to folks, and acknowledging that they should be paid for their time and that they should get to like be like the decision makers. And so we had this like general thought, and we ended up, I keep wanting to say contractor, but consultant. Right? Consultant. Yeah, consultant. I think I'm too much in the government world.
I think both work.
But when we connected to our amazing strategic plan consultant, who you'll hear about in the future, she took this thought that we had and expanded it. And then I think I'll hand it over to one of you to continue to explain, but then put it into staff's hands to build it.
Yeah. So, gosh. And then we started talking about that I don't remember, was it 2024? Earlier this year we started, right? It's still, so this episode will come out in 2025, but today is actually the end of December, but we're
almost 25.
Close to 2025. But earlier this year, we worked with our consultant, Vaughn Strategies, LLC, to kind of talk about what we wanted to see. And she developed a very intentional process for us to get to this avenue of gathering community input. Like, it's very intentional in recognizing, like, we can't just go in hot. We need to even build our own relationships as we're moving towards this work, and be really intentional. So it starts off with us meeting with partner organizations and their staff. And then, working with them to see what it is, what suggestions they have for us as an organization, but also like identifying like whose voices need to be heard in this process, recognizing like our partners, they have a lot of connections that maybe we don't, and they could be a trusted person to the community, and they would be the experts in how to connect with folks in the community as well. So working with partner orgs, their staff, and then eventually working with community members that they suggest. And so we think the process will probably take us about a year.
Yeah.
From start to finish, kind of meeting with these focus groups and paying people for their time, like making sure that there's food, and, thinking about the things that people need to be able to participate in something like this. So childcare, I mentioned dinner, paying them for their time, language access. Do we have folks that are able to provide language access? Luckily, in-house we do, but also, thinking through with our partner organizations too, just if there is a language that we don't have internal capacity for, perhaps hiring one of those folks to support us in that way.
Yeah, and I'm honored to manage that program, the Trusted Messenger program, and it's a great way to like amplify people's voices in your community, right? And it gives them an opportunity to give us feedback. Like, as an org, how can we grow if we don't receive feedback from the public and from the community members? I think it's important for us to really listen to what people have to say about our services, and I'm hearing, some of the questions that we might not even think of. And so I think, I'm going to backtrack my thought real quick. Yeah. So, so asking these super specific questions and listening to what the public has to say and our customers is important to see how we can implement these changes at our food bank.
Yeah, because like all of us here that have a microphone or have an office at the food bank or, or on the board, like we have our own ideas of how we want to see the organization grow. But I mean, it's kind of meaningless at the end of the day if we don't have community input and like,
exactly.
What are we really working towards? Like, it's makes a big difference to have folks in particular that like usually don't get a seat at the table. Like the food bank oftentimes like as a organization gets a seat at the table, and like how do we make sure that people that don't have that power, we're putting the power back in their hands.
Some years ago, I was taught what true community engagement should look like, and going into community as Randy does, into community, truly listening, and then uplifting voices, and then making decisions based on what those voices are looking for. And then also, as we've been talking about, recognizing who's not at the table. And that's something that's now like instilled in me. And I think that it should be the way that organizations generally function, rather than with an old school like board of directors that makes decisions and pushes them down through the executive director. It's community, and those voices should be uplifted, and it should be this cycle.
Right. Like we work for the community, right? And so they should be telling us like what it is we should be doing, and they're the experts in their lives, right? Like they know exactly what they need. And as an organization, like how can we implement that? How can we leverage our resources to make those things happen, right? Because we recognize there's not a shortage of food, right? It's a distribution of power is what the issue is, and families are poor, and that's why they come to the food bank. Like people are really struggling, and it's not because there isn't enough food in the country. It's just who has access to that food, who has access to these resources, who has access to money.
This conversation also reminds me of last month's episode when Roxana was talking about how food banks are not often thought of as a place where you can have, societal change or where it can inspire change. And I think this program is something that will demonstrate that change is possible at a food bank,
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Are you going to ask, did we already ask Randy what food makes him feel like home? I'm like waiting for that question to come out, but maybe it won't.
I mean, he did talk about it maybe in our first episode, but he could talk about it again.
Sure.
What meal reminds you of home?
Meal reminds me of home. It's definitely my grandma's cooking. My mom worked full time, and so our grandma used to babysit us pretty much most of the day. And every time she makes like this Vietnamese curry, I've always enjoyed, and I remember watching her make it. And I remember as an adult now, before she passed, she was like, "If you like the dish, you gotta make it yourself." And so I just watched her make it, and there's no ingredient list or anything. I just make it based off of memory. And so, shout out to my grandma and rest in peace. But my grandma's curry.
Oh, is that the recipe that you put in the recipe book?
No, it was a different one, but I think the curry kind of overpowers it for sure.
Is the recipe you did for the recipe book from your grandma?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that way that you get to honor her memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like there's no measurements for like the seasoning. It's like you just do it. If it tastes good, you're good.
I did mom's adobo for my recipe, and I was like, she doesn't measure anything, so I like kind of have to guess. And I think I even put something about like taste it until you like it.
Exactly.
Can I ask, did your family also grow up in this community?
Yeah, so we're all, well, my siblings and I were born and raised in West Seattle, but my mom grew up in Vietnam, along with my aunt, my uncle, and my grandma. And then they had to move to the Philippines. My uncle is African American and Vietnamese, and so they kind of experienced a lot of like racial racism pretty much during the time. And so they moved to the Philippines for a little bit, and then they went to California, and then they moved to Seattle.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
How old was your mom when she moved here?
She had my older brother when she was 16. Um, I can't backtrack her age, unfortunately.
And and you said he was born
Yeah,
here,
he's
so
born
she
here.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't think of that.
Do the math.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Just
do
not-
the math, but okay. Did they enjoy their time in the Philippines?
I think my mom did, but she never really talked about it. It was a very short period of time. I think it was like less than a year, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we always talk about going back to Vietnam, but I've never been, and she's kind of scared of going back.
Is
so,
she?
Yeah. There's like this stigma of like older generation going back into their homeland and
Oh,
seeing
interesting.
seeing the environmental changes that happen throughout their childhood,
Oh.
and so maybe it's like grasping the overall change of our hometown.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
My mom was always scared to take me to the Philippines because I guess, I don't know, some years ago, some locals, like if you looked American, they would kidnap you for ransom. It doesn't happen. Like, I don't know how often it happened before, but my cousin was like, yeah, that was a thing back then. So my mom had always been a little scared to take me, and we went recent. Like, that's part of where I was on sabbatical.
Yeah.
If people were wondering, I'm sure nobody cares, but but it was, she was nervous at first, but then she became okay with it, and I just blended in.
I feel like I won't blend in if I go to Vietnam.
Oh,
I feel like I'm pretty big for a Vietnamese
Well.
guy, and so kind of tall and bulky, but my Vietnamese is not as fluent as it should be.
my cousin was like, just don't open your mouth, you'll be fine.
That's what I say too when I go to Latin American countries. If I just keep my mouth shut,
Yeah.
then I'll blend
Yeah.
out right.
Yeah, but it was cool to get to see
Your roots.
my roots and
Yeah.
like the area that my mom grew up in, and even she was like, while we were there, reflecting a little bit on just how much her province has changed over the years. And she's been back several times since she initially left in the early 70s, but each time she goes back, it's just more and more people. The population has just kept growing.
Right.
So, Vietnamese is very much a part of your culture, right? And you celebrate Lunar New Year?
Yep. Lunar New Year for me and my family, it's about celebrating our cultural identity and through different traditions in our family, and that's just a way for us to really take a step back and learn about our ancestral history and doing cultural traditions, whether that's going to temples or experiencing cultural foods in our culture, and there's much more things like superstitious actions, like don't take out the trash before New Year, don't wash your hair because you might wash away your fortune for the New Year.
Oh yeah, like the good energy, right?
Yeah. And as a kid growing up, I used to love the Lunar New Year because I used to get so much money. So much red envelopes. But that's the way as an elder, you're supposed to give good fortune to the youth. And so as a kid, I used to say Chúc mừng năm mới, which is Happy New Year. Phé man means I hope you stay strong. And then now that I'm an adult, I do the opposite. I have to give the youth a red envelope. And so Lunar New Year for me is very about just family bonding and being able to self-reflect about our culture.
Is there any traditions where the youth do something for the elders?
Yeah, I mean, you could totally do it both ways, but you want to wish the elders like good wealth too and good health.
And maybe for folks that don't know what Lunar New Year is, like, could you just give like a brief description?
Yeah, Lunar New Year is pretty much Vietnamese New Year and Chinese New Year, and it's just a way for us to really embrace our cultures through different traditions.
And it's in February?
Yep, it's early this year. I think it's
January, maybe?
no January. Sorry, it's like late January. I
Okay.
believe, yeah.
Okay. Because
And it's the year of the snake this year.
Year of the Snake. Is that your year?
It's not my year. I'm the year of the pig.
Year of the Pig.
Me
Oh, okay.
too. We have so much in common, Randy.
What are you, Jefferson?
Dragon.
Oh.
Just my year. It's currently my year.
Oh. I'm Year of the Rabbit.
My mom was Year of the Rabbit.
Lucky, I think. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dragon's the best, though.
Oh, come on.
Quick funny story. When I was a kid, my uncle used to tell me I was the year of the rat. You wanna know why?
Why?
He used to call me Mup, which is fat boy.
Oh, no.
So I was really the year of the pig. So he lied to me, saying I was the year of the rat the whole time. I found out like not too long ago. So.
And then sometimes there's an element attached to that, to like the animal
Yeah, I think it's like a emblem.
emblem.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I personally don't know the connection, but I think it's a sign of like stability and can't know top of my head, but
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the food bank, I don't even know when we started doing it. Maybe 2018 or I don't know. Sometimes I look back through our social media just to see like when did we start doing this thing like celebrating Lunar New Year, but it was maybe 2018 I think, or it could have been no, it was probably 2018 would have been the earliest, but just recognizing like the cultural importance to so many of our customers and like of course Miss Chio really highlighting that for us. We started just procuring and providing specialty items for Lunar New Year for customers. At first they were just available upon request, so folks would have to request kind of the Lunar New Year basket. And we were much more constrained by food budget back then, but really give credit to Mike for kind of transforming these cultural holidays in terms of how we involve community. And now it's offered to everybody that comes in to the food bank. And I know we've talked about this a little bit before in our episode with him, but you know, it's a way for us to be able to build community with each other, with folks of different cultures, and get to share a little bit about one culture with folks that maybe don't necessarily celebrate Lunar New Year. So I know he's planning that already. And so we'll do that, I think, probably a week or two before the new year, Lunar New Year, and to give our customers an opportunity to get that food, because oftentimes, depending on whatever their family traditions are, we won't see many of those customers during Lunar New Year as they're embracing their traditions, but want to make sure that they still have an opportunity to get that food if it's important to them.
So likely when this episode comes out, if folks are looking for a Lunar New Year basket, it would be the time.
It would be the time.
This
think.
episode comes out on January 13th, and that's the day we're starting Lunar New Year distribution.
Boom.
Perfect.
So come by and get your
It's
Lunar New Year
serendipitous.
basket. Do either of you know what we're gonna have?
I know that we will have a meat selection. We will have rice flour, oil, I believe, and rice noodles.
Great.
Yum.
And they're like, great staples and signature items that we use in, Chinese and Vietnamese culture. So it's great that the food bank's doing that. I don't know any other place who kind of, cater to our customers like that, and just being able to really embrace the culture of foods that our food bank has to offer is amazing. And I've had people who never experienced certain items before, and they tried it, and they super enjoy it, and so it's really admiring to see.
I like that. And it noodles, you eat that, right, for like prosperity and
Yep.
long life?
Longevity, yeah.
Longevity. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know Gabby has to leave a little early, so is there anything else that you want to talk about before you have to bounce?
I don't think so. It's been really cool learning about you more, Randy. I'm looking forward to working with you, continuing in the future. And happy Lunar New Year, everybody.
Yay!
Thank
Happy
you so much,
Lunar New
Gabby.
Year.
Appreciate it.
Hey, everyone. Stepping in.
Thanks, Jefferson, for stepping in. And there's just like one last thing that we wanted to talk about for this episode because it's coming up quick. Empty Bowls is January 31st. It is hosted by, it's in partnership with Discover Burien and Burien Parks and Rec. But they do this fundraiser every year for, I don't know exactly how long, but a long time. And pretty much it's a suggested donation of $20 and you get a bowl of soup. And you also get to pick out a bowl made by folks at Mosier Art Center in Burien, and they donate all these bowls, and it's really beautiful, kind of a fun event, of course centered around food, but they do such a good job procuring all of the soup that gets donated, all of the food that gets donated. So like 95% of the proceeds get split between White Center Food Bank and Highline Food Bank, which is really cool. Had to shift a little bit during the pandemic, but last year or 2024 were able to have kind of the event back, and so excited for 2025. And you both were there last year.
I've been a judge.
You've been a judge. I've been a judge.
It's pretty amazing. You get very full on soup. But it's nice to taste the different flavors from around the Burien community and feel all that support from the restaurants and just people come out and enjoy soup on a cold day and support the food banks.
Yeah, and you get to appreciate and support all the artists that create all the ceramic bowls. And it was my first event when I joined the team, so it was,
That's right.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. It's really cool because like people sometimes have like certain artists that they really like and like kind of build up a collection of bowls from that artist. And then there's usually a lunch service and a dinner service. So depending on what your schedule is like on Friday, January 31st, if lunch works better for you, you could come for lunch or you could come for dinner. And yeah, it's just a fun, low barrier way to get out and support the community. Our team usually shows up, so you'll see Jefferson there and Randy behind the camera, and I'm usually, a greeter at the door thanking everybody for coming by. So if you're there, make sure you say hi to us, and you can learn more from our social media page.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And yeah, just stay tuned of all the content that we'll be creating in the next few months and in the next year. So super stoked.
Yeah. Empty Bowls, come on out, January 31st.
Hope to see you there. Well, that's going to conclude episode 4 of Keep the Community Fed podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Special shout out to our special guest, Randy, and of course the team that makes this happen, Randy and Jefferson, and thanks to my co-host, Gabby, for joining us again today. And you can get this podcast wherever you get podcasts. And remember to follow us on all our social media channels at White Center Food Bank. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.